Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is another episode of the Classic Mini Survival Guide. Specifically, this is part 2 of the timing series that I did earlier. And what I'm going to do is go over timing lights, what kinds there are, how to use them, how to get them set up on your car, and then checking timing on your motor, as well as plotting out a distributor advance curve. So follow along while I go through this process, and hopefully you guys learn something new while I go through all these steps. So if you guys haven't watched the previous episode, I'll put a link to it over here. So you guys can go check it out and see what I'm talking about. There's a lot of good information in that episode, and it's important to understand the concepts before we get into this episode. But with this one, what I'm going to do is use these to demonstrate how to use a timing light. And in the previous episode, I had used this book as reference material to talk about timing curves. The book describes setting static timing at 12 degrees on a 970 motor. It also mentioned the 24 degrees at 1532 at 4,000 RPM points. And that's what I want to talk about today, is how do you measure these higher RPM points using a timing light? And that gets us to a discussion on the kinds of timing lights there are and the major differences between them and why you might want one versus another. So what I have here are 3 different versions of a timing light. I've got a standard or conventional timing light. This is an early version from Innova called Dialback, and then this is the latest generation. I use this one for all my tuning, so it's a little bit beat up, but it works perfectly. Now, I am not sponsored by Innova. I just use their products and have good success with it, so this is what I use. You use whatever it is that you have, but I highly recommend having a quality timing light in order to do this process, because cheap ones produce problems, and I'll explain why in a minute. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this off and bring out just the ignition system and the cabling and talk about how a timing light triggers and works, because it's actually a very interesting process. So as we can see here, I've set up just a dummy ignition system. And we've got a distributor here with a set of points. And as I mentioned in the previous video, the way that the ignition system works is that, the coil here charges up with electricity from the battery or the alternator when it's running. And when the rotor is turning around and it hits one of these high points, the contacts open up and allow the coil to dump all of its electrical energy through the wire going to the cap. The rotor directs the energy to whichever cylinder needs to be firing at any given time. It then goes through the second wire to your spark plug and then into the cylinder to ignite the air-fuel mixture and start the combustion process. So, how do we use a timing light to measure that ignition point? Well, on a conventional timing light and the more modern ones, they require a few connections. So there's a positive and negative battery connections here. And there's a lead that goes around the spark plug wire. On this version, it doesn't matter which way you orient it. However, the more modern cables have a directionality to them. So for instance, this one says plug pointing that way. So if you're using this cable, you would hook up like that with the arrow pointing to the plug. But the way it works is that the high energy from the coil charges up, distributor says fire, the energy comes out through the wire to the second wire to the plug and then into the block. That high energy generates a magnetic field, very small one, or an electrostatic field. And this clamp has a series of windings in it and can sense or measure when that pulse travels through this wire to the plug. And that information, that pulse, is sent through the wiring into the timing light itself. And inside here, there's a series of large capacitors that charge up electricity at a xenon lamp bulb. And when that pulse is sensed, the energy gets dumped into those capacitors, into the bulb, and ignites the bulb and causes it to strobe. So all these strobe lamps use a xenon style strobe light and operate on the same principle. High energy field is detected here in the clamp. Information is sent to the module. Module fires the light. Out comes the light strobe and hits your timing marks on your flywheel or your crank pulley, depending on whatever car you're measuring it on. But that's how they basically work. The later kind, or I should say more advanced kinds, have more sophisticated circuitry inside here. And this one, as well as my newer one, they both give you RPM, voltage, dwell angle, and they give you the function of what's called dial back. Now, a dial back timing light versus a conventional timing light is like talking about night versus day. The dial back system allows you to change the timing of when the strobe light sends its strobe out at the mark that you're looking at to make it easier for you to read what the mark is that the ignition system is producing a spark timing at. So if we were sitting at idle, for example, using our conventional timing light strobing, and it said, let's just say 10 degrees, this one would say 10 degrees before you activate the dial back system. However, once you activate the dial back system, you can make it show 0 degrees on the pulley, and the circuit would say you've adjusted it 10 degrees. So for cars that only have one timing mark or don't have any additional timing marks, a dial back system is very, very useful for being able to measure timing not only at idle, but at much higher RPM points, so that you can check full advanced timing and 2000 RPM timing and wherever else you'd want to check, because you only need one mark to be able to check everything, because you can use the dial back system to do it. By comparison, a conventional system, for starters, may not be able to read the high RPM strobes because it's really designed to check idle timing, but you don't have any way of changing any of the timing of the strobe, so therefore you depend entirely on the vehicle you're working on to have timing marks above anything above idle. And if you don't have anything above, say, 10 or 15 degrees, you will never be able to check your full advanced timing using a conventional timing light. If all you ever wanted to do was check idle, then this thing is perfect. There is a way around the problem of having not enough marks, and that is to simply add more marks, but you have to do some careful measurements and painting to do that, and that's beyond the scope of today's episode. But I'd just be aware that there are limitations to the conventional timing lights, whereas the more sophisticated ones give you much more flexibility with the things that you can measure, as well as they provide a bit of dampening effect to the strobe. So a conventional one simply just strobes whenever a pulse travels through the wire. And if you have an ignition system that's very sloppy, like the distributor's worn out, or the gear sprockets on your cam and crank pulley are worn out, there could be a lot of error in your timing. And the conventional one will simply just recreate whatever's going on over here, whereas a conventional one has a bit of smoothing circuitry to kind of stabilize the marks a little bit. So these ones make it a little bit easier for you to see the sort of average timing that's happening at any given point. So that's why I like using these dial back systems. But it's one of those things where you get what you pay for, basically. If you have a cheap one, you may not get accurate results, whereas you have a really nice one, you'll get probably get good results based on what's inside the system. So until you test it and check it, you never know. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and move on to taking this outside of the garage, and I'll get it all set up on the car, and you can see what it looks like when the car is running. And I'm going to be doing it on an A-series motor, so you guys can see what timing an A-series motor looks like, because we have to use that little window on the clutch housing to do all the timing work on it. So I'm going to move over to the garage and start that process next.